A thread by Soul War. Trump's unsung victories number 3. The courts. President Trump's longest-lasting legacy for the American people will be the courts. In one highly sandbagged and sabotaged term of office, he nonetheless managed to appoint a staggering number of federal judges, 404. After a century of the left's slow march through our institutions, 1920s through the present, Americans had grown used to federal judges using their legal clout not for the public good, but for political, judicial activism that was nothing short of the abuse of the legal system. Judicial activism at the expense of American values is now so prevalent and pervasive since the 1990s, it is now lauded in law articles like the one pictured below. Rule of law, the concept that American law is a code of conduct for all, was being replaced by a legal structure committed to pushing Americans as individuals, communities, and businesses in the directions desired by activist judges, granted that authority not for that purpose. Another aspect of the left's rampant abuse of the American citizen when provided any public authority. The first 2 years of Trump's presidency was a seesaw act of President Trump does X, followed by activist federal judge blocks X. Months later, President Trump does X again. Another activist federal judge blocks X again. Rinse, repeat. But Trump was not idle. As the vile mainstream media focused on Russia and breathlessly cheerleaded the now discredited Mueller team of political hacks, Trump was appointing federal judges at an amazing rate. Not his judges like Obama's appointees, but strict constitutionalists who will follow the law. And there were Trump's 2 battles to appoint 2 justices to the Supreme Court, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. Gorsuch was a bruising, sometimes funny street theater as the left howled and protested. Who remembers the fill-in-the-blank protest signs? Oppose any non-activist justice. The Kavanaugh hearing and protests, I use that word sarcastically, were anything but civil disobedience. It was an out-and-out attempt to shut down the hearing. Sabotage. Democrats were that pissed off that they couldn't stop Kavanaugh's nomination. It was brutal. Understand, just as Gloria Allred was tasked with ginning up and trotting out over a dozen lying strumpets and loons to accuse Trump during his campaign, they did the exact same thing to Brett Kavanaugh. Trump was supposed to quit. Remember Herman Cain? Cain recently passed away from cancer. Poor man. He was abused, slandered, lied about by the Democrats who did not want a black conservative running versus Obama. So they sent Allred in to destroy him. Cain buckled and withdrew due to the impact on his family, as the left wanted. Now, please realize this. There is no level the left will not stoop to in pursuit of political power. You are seeing this in every major Democrat-run city right now. Kavanaugh was supposed to quit. The Democrats were stunned that their shitbag tactics didn't force him out. So, if you happen to remember what an unparalleled dark circus the Kavanaugh hearings were, I assure you, you do not know half of what went down in that chamber. Democrats were deliberately trying to end the hearing since they couldn't stop it from happening. Alinsky tactics were on full display. The audience was full of activists determined to ruin the hearing and force Grassley and McConnell to shut it down. When the hearing began, rage-filled tantrum. The activist would be arrested, things would start up again. 3 minutes later, another rage-filled tantrum. Hearing disrupted. Rinse, repeat. Grassley and the GOP simply slogged on, determined to adhere to the process. As it became clear the hearing would continue, the antics became more extreme. Shrieking harpies carried out, menstrual blood, all failed. Chairman Chuck Grassley was so determined to carry on by hour 3, he simply kept going as activists shrieked and carried on. Brett Kavanaugh got his hearing, and despite the most underhanded and despicable attacks from the left, he was approved and became a justice, where his presence on the court has helped our president and the Justice Department on its return to the rule of law. The insanity and sheer demonic rage felt in that chamber was a harbinger of what was to come, I now realize. It's attacking police and regular Americans every night in places like Portland, Oregon. As President Trump's 4th year in office dawned, he was struggling with an impeachment farce and what turned out to be a worldwide pandemic, and then a nationwide insurrection was launched by the left. By June, he'd pretty much whipped all 3. The impeachment was a proactive move. The Democrats launched it because they knew what Rudy Giuliani's trip to the Ukraine meant. What I've called their block squad at the U.S. Embassy in the Ukraine had managed until then successfully prevented any evidence of their massive theft of U.S. aid to reach the DOJ. As Giuliani was in Ukraine compiling evidence of massive fraud and corruption by both U.S. and Ukrainian politicians, our dirtbag media was doing everything in their power to discredit and slander him. Every red-lined article is a stink piece born of sheer terror at what he's doing. Upon returning to the U.S., Rudy gave interviews, started a YouTube channel to chronicle what he's found generically, as the specific evidence must be preserved for court, and then handed that evidence over to Attorney General Barr. That was in February, so the doom criers descended as months passed. Giuliani fades as the doom criers trumpet, nothing's happening, nothing's gonna happen, because Attorney General Barr doesn't hold a daily presser like Ken Starr to tell the opposition what they're doing so that they can sabotage it. Gives them that opening to deceive impatient and stupid people. And then, Sharaka. This is big. The sharp edge. The FBI just raided the Cleveland office building connected to Ukrainian oligarch Igor Kolomoisky, who is a principal of the Privat Group. 2 links to appreciate the impact that this will have. $1.8 billion in taxpayer aid from the U.S. to the Ukraine to bail them out. Where did the money go? To one bank, Privat Bank. It was a giant money laundering slush fund scheme. And who was the recipient of this $1.8 billion of taxpayer U.S. aid? Ask Hunter. There he is. Hey now, nothing to see here. It's just billions of your tax dollars stolen and given to Ukrainian oligarchs, who then used your money to buy U.S. real estate. That's all. And who is hip deep in all of the financial chicanery? The Bidens. Barr went there. Dominoes are falling. And now, moving into July, Attorney General Barr prepared to flex the new control the federal judiciary has at not being activist asshats at our expense. Federal executions. To explain why this morbid topic is so critical to the return of the rule of law, I wrote a thread on it. Activist judges ensured no federal executions have been carried out since 2003. Lewis Jones Jr., kidnapper, rapist, murderer of a U.S. soldier, Tracy McBride. An activist judge did try to stop the first 2, Lee and Perky, but only delayed their executions by 24 hours. Federal Judge Tanya Chutkan even issued 2 injunctions to stop Perky's execution, to no avail. The activist logjam was utterly broken. Child murderers charged federally can now expect a serious date in Terre Haute's death chamber as the left rages and fumes. Giving themselves a consolation prize, the federal activists have vacated child murderer Dzhokhar Tsarnaev's death sentence and will review the sentence to determine his fate. Good luck. They're going to need it, as the evidence Dzhokhar placed his bomb 3 feet from Martin Richard is damning. The Richard family lost Martin, and his sister Jane lost a leg and an eye. They do not support the death penalty, which makes them better people than me. But, as Attorney General Barr has stated, this was an attack on the nation, not just specific victims. Attorney General Barr's Department of Justice is beginning to roll out evidence on many legal fronts the left has been desperate to hide. General Flynn's shit ton of exculpatory evidence alone is a testament of how far our legal system has strayed from the spirit of American justice. Listening to Sidney Powell, Flynn's attorney, trying to rephrase the same point in legalese 100 different ways as federal judges pontificate and posture on the finer points of their mystic guild's tome of dogma makes me want to brain someone with a heavy chair. There is no longer a case against her client, period. Well, just as the Marxist insurrection is currently dying before our eyes, so too is their judicial activism, something that has been a shameful blight on American jurisprudence going on 50 years. Their grip upon the throat of Justitia, Lady Justice, is broken. Balance. Their ability to tip the scales in their favor, but especially tipping them against their political opponents, is going away. As I have often said, the left sees the law as a tool, not a code. We see pick 1, a code binding the lawful. They see pick 2, a hammer to beat you with. I think that's Mjolnir. Anyway. Right now, Democrat-run cities are allowing, encouraging, and even enabling lawlessness and destruction on their streets. The number of rioters who are actively doing the damage is tiny. This is why they release them very quickly every time to keep the chaos going. Become ungovernable. Well, Attorney General Barr, President Trump, and Secretary of Defense Esper are busy as bees fixing all of this under the radar. Remember my thread on Project Safe Neighborhood and Trump's First Step Act? The incorrigibles are going to go away for a long time. Operation Legend is just the start. Once the people of Seattle and Portland and Chicago and New York City have had their full measure, a real taste of what the radical left is, they will begin hauling out all of their street thugs in to face federal charges. As the left connived and plotted Trump's demise, he literally reshaped the very ground beneath their feet. A juggernaut they are only now realizing the size and scope of. How many more federal judges will President Trump appoint by 2025? How many more SCOTUS appointments? Oh, I almost forgot. Here's what's really funny. Ready? During Obama's last term as president, there was a deliberate slowdown of appointing judges. Now, why was that? The Clintons never appoint somebody for free when you can get paid for it. Pay for play, baby. Look at all those vacant judgeships. Whee! Oh no, my God, this isn't happening. This can't be happening. Game over, man. Game over. I've covered what's called the silent war for years. The truth? Trump won the silent war on November 8th. This is the mop-up. The Democrats can pull every nasty, filthy, and disgusting tactic out of the bottomless pit of dirty tricks, and it's not going to matter. Trump was at their elbows for decades, listening and learning who they are and how they operate. There will be setbacks, yes, but they're doomed. His unleashing of Attorney General Barr, not as a personal attack dog like Holder or Lynch, but as the fair arbiter to restore the American people's faith in the law, coupled with the restoration of the judiciary, will be his greatest and longest lasting legacy. But by the time it's run its course, it will look like this. Look at the radical left right now. People use the word insane a lot. Try this one on for size. Demonic. By 2025, when the most amazing president in U.S. history hands that office over to his hand-picked successor, people will be calling him a modern Moses without a shred of self-consciousness, because the face of the radical left was revealed and defeated by this soul war. To support Brent Cates' works, you can donate any amount at paypal.me/BrentCates. Thanks for listening.